The Galactic Empire had been watching Earth for years, growing increasingly frustrated by the planet's persistent defiance. Earth, despite its relatively primitive technology, had managed to resist the Empire's numerous attempts at subjugation. The final blow was inevitable, and after a heated discussion within the Empire's high command, they deployed their most terrifying weapon, an energy cannon capable of vaporizing entire continents with a single shot. This weapon, a towering behemoth stationed on an orbiting ship, was known throughout the galaxy for its destructive power. It had already turned several rebellious planets into nothing more than cosmic debris, and Earth was next. The High Command considered it a necessary measure, swift, brutal, and final. The order was given, and as the massive cannon's core began to charge, the skies above Earth darkened. Earth's space agencies detected the weapon's activation within moments, but the realization came too late. Governments scrambled to come up with a countermeasure, but no solution was in sight. There was nothing in Earth's arsenal capable of matching the sheer power of the Galactic Empire's superweapon. Military forces across the world prepared for the worst, knowing that conventional defenses would be useless against the weapon of this scale. Panic spread among the global population. The countdown to annihilation had begun, and no nation could offer hope. Earth's top military commanders held emergency meetings, their discussions becoming more frantic by the hour. Some argued for a desperate last stand, while others spoke in hushed tones of surrender. But in the face of such overwhelming force, it was clear that neither option would be enough. Amid the chaos, a team of archaeologists working deep in a forgotten jungle uncovered something strange. Hidden in the dense underbrush was an ancient temple, covered in thick vines and moss. It had been undisturbed for centuries, maybe longer. The discovery initially seemed insignificant compared to the global crisis unfolding above them, but one of the researchers noticed something unusual in the temple's carvings, something that seemed out of place, given the era and culture. The carvings depicted a massive figure, an enormous creature that towered over cities and mountains alike. Around the figure, smaller beings worshipped, their hands raised in supplication. Below the carving, an inscription read, "When the world is on the brink of destruction, the king of the jungle will rise." At first, the archaeologists dismissed it as nothing more than an ancient myth, a story passed down through generations. But as they studied the details, something about the image struck them. It wasn't just a myth, it was a prophecy. And the timing seemed too perfect to be a coincidence. Desperate for any solution, the researchers relayed their findings to Earth's world leaders. The response was met with disbelief. Summoning a mythical being was beyond the realm of science, beyond logic itself. Yet, with the planet mere hours away from total destruction, humanity's leaders had no choice but to consider the unthinkable. Scientists and archaeologists were quickly flown in from around the globe. The ancient temple became a hive of activity, filled with equipment, sensors, and rituals that combined modern technology with long-forgotten practices. No one truly believed it would work. It was madness, pure and simple, a last-ditch effort to summon a legend from a forgotten age. But as the hours ticked by, and the Empire's superweapon continued to charge, humanity had nothing to lose. The air in the temple crackled with energy as the ritual began. Machines hummed and ancient words were spoken, the fusion of science and myth becoming Earth's final hope. Around the world, millions of people held their breath, glued to their screens as they watched events unfold. Satellites captured the faintest hint of a disturbance in the atmosphere, an anomaly forming just beyond the temple. It started as a ripple, barely noticeable at first. But then, the ground trembled. A low, thunderous rumble echoed through the jungle, and the earth itself seemed to shake. Then it happened. From the heart of the temple's ruins, the ground split open, and out of the chasm emerged the king of the jungle. King Kong. But this was no ordinary Kong. Standing taller than any building, his muscles rippled with raw power, his eyes glowing with a primal energy that seemed to connect him directly to the earth itself. His roar echoed across the land, a sound so powerful that it shattered the air and sent birds fleeing from miles around. Every living creature felt it, the return of an ancient protector. Kong wasn't just a mindless beast. His presence was more than physical, it was elemental, as if he embodied the very force of nature. He was Earth's fury made manifest, summoned to protect his home from an otherworldly threat. The world watched in awe as the impossible became reality. King Kong had risen. The Galactic Empire, monitoring the situation from their orbiting fleet, dismissed the appearance of the massive ape. To them, it was nothing more than another foolish attempt by humanity to resist their inevitable demise. They had seen many planets try and fail. This would be no different. The energy cannon continued to charge, and the countdown to Earth's destruction neared its final moments. But something had changed. For the first time since the Empire's weapon was deployed, there was a flicker of hope. King Kong gazed up at the sky, sensing the approaching danger. His massive fists clenched, and his muscles tensed. He knew instinctively what he had to do. With a primal roar that shook the heavens, Kong began his march toward the superweapon. The ritual had worked. Against all odds, the impossible had been achieved, and King Kong, a creature from myth, now stood towering over the jungle. His massive form was a sight that defied belief. His fur bristled in the humid air, muscles rippling under the weight of his own colossal strength. He wasn't just an ape, he was the embodiment of something far more primal, an ancient force, deeply connected to the earth itself. Every step he took sent tremors through the ground, as if the planet itself was reacting to his presence. In the command centers scattered across the globe, scientists, military leaders, and politicians stared at their monitors in stunned silence. This was their final hope, a last-ditch effort born out of desperation. Even though they had succeeded in summoning Kong, no one knew if he could truly stand against the technological might of the Galactic Empire. For a few moments, the entire world was suspended in awe and disbelief. Kong, however, seemed to have no such doubts. He moved with purpose, his instincts guiding him toward the danger. The skies above were filled with the looming shadow of the Empire's fleet, their ships circling like vultures preparing to feast on a dying planet. But Kong wasn't deterred. He raised his head toward the sky, his deep, glowing eyes locking onto the incoming threat. He let out a roar so loud it shook the atmosphere, a challenge thrown at the invaders who dared threaten his domain. The Empire, monitoring the situation from orbit, had no intention of backing down. To them, Kong was just another obstacle to crush under their technological superiority. They had conquered planets, wiped out entire civilizations with ease. A giant ape, no matter how powerful he appeared, was nothing compared to the destructive force they wielded. The countdown to the superweapon's final charge continued, the energy cannon ready to unleash its devastating blast. On Earth, military leaders scrambled to coordinate a defense. They didn't fully understand King Kong's power, but they had no choice but to trust in him. Fighter jets were deployed to support Kong from the skies, though there was a palpable sense of doubt. Could this creature, this legend, actually stand a chance? Would his raw strength be enough against the Empire's overwhelming technology? Kong wasted no time proving that he wasn't an ordinary beast. As the first wave of the Empire's robotic war machines descended from the sky, Kong reacted with ferocity and precision. A massive, hulking titan of steel and alien engineering landed before him, its towering form ready to crush anything in its path. But Kong charged forward without hesitation, his massive fists slamming into the robotic titan with a force that shattered metal and circuitry. Sparks flew, and the robotic behemoth crumpled under his raw power. The sight of Kong ripping through one of the Empire's finest machines sent a wave of shock through the human forces. For the first time in the battle, there was a glimmer of hope. Kong's sheer strength was undeniable. He was more than just an ancient legend, he was a weapon, a force of nature that could stand against even the most advanced technology the galaxy had to offer. As more machines dropped from the sky, Kong tore through them with an unstoppable fury. He moved with surprising speed and agility for a creature of his size, grabbing one robot and using it as a weapon to smash through another. The battlefield became a whirlwind of destruction, with Kong at the center, dismantling the Empire's forces with primal brutality. Earth's military, emboldened by Kong's success, launched coordinated attacks to support him. Jets streaked through the air, dropping bombs and firing missiles at the enemy's ships and robots, working in unison with the towering ape. Despite this, the Galactic Empire remained unfazed. The destruction of a few robotic soldiers meant little to them. They had the ultimate weapon, and it was nearly ready to fire. From their position in orbit, the commanders watched the scene unfold, confident that the energy cannon would soon erase the creature and the planet it protected. The superweapon's core glowed brighter and brighter as the final moments of its charge approached. Kong, however, seemed to sense the danger coming from above. His battle with the robotic soldiers wasn't just a mindless rampage. There was intelligence in his actions, an awareness of the true threat looming over the planet. As more robots descended, Kong turned his gaze skyward once again, this time locking on to the massive ship that housed the energy cannon. His growl rumbled through the atmosphere as if challenging the very stars themselves. The ground quaked beneath Kong's feet as he sprinted across the battlefield, smashing aside anything in his path. The robotic soldiers tried to halt his advance, but none of them stood a chance. Kong leaped into the air, grabbing onto one of the Empire's dropships and using it as a platform to launch himself even higher. His leap carried him closer to the sky, closer to the orbital ships and the weapon that threatened to annihilate Earth. The Empire's commanders watched in disbelief as the ape rose higher and higher, defying their expectations at every turn. They had anticipated a brutish beast, but what they were witnessing was something far more dangerous, an intelligent, calculating force capable of adapting to their tactics. Kong's connection to the planet seemed to give him an edge they hadn't accounted for, and that made him far more threatening than they had imagined. As the final moments of the countdown ticked away, the superweapon prepared to fire. The energy cannon, glowing with a deadly radiance, aimed toward one of Earth's largest cities, ready to vaporize it in a single blast. But Kong wasn't about to let that happen. With a final, thunderous leap, he propelled himself toward the orbital ship, his massive fists raised and ready to strike. The world held its breath. Kong's leap carried him higher than anyone could have imagined, his massive form soaring through the sky toward the Empire's towering ships. As he closed the distance, the Empire's defenses kicked into overdrive. Cannons opened fire, unleashing a barrage of laser blasts and missiles aimed directly at him. The air was filled with the deadly hum of advanced weaponry, but Kong, undeterred, twisted through the sky, dodging and deflecting the incoming fire with surprising agility for his immense size. Below him, Earth's military forces did everything in their power to support his advance. Fighter jets zoomed through the air, laying down cover fire to distract the Empire's ships. Ground forces launched volleys of missiles, aiming to create enough chaos for Kong to reach his target. Though they knew they were little more than a diversion, they fought with a fierce determination, unwilling to let the Empire take their planet without a fight. Kong reached the first of the Empire's ships, gripping its metallic hull with his enormous hands. With a single, violent motion, he tore a massive chunk of the ship apart, sending debris and soldiers tumbling into the atmosphere. His strength was beyond anything the Empire had anticipated, and for the first time, the realization dawned on their commanders. They might have underestimated Earth's defender. As Kong ripped through the outer defenses of the ship, robotic drones swarmed toward him, each equipped with cutting-edge weapons designed to dismantle anything in their path. They fired at him relentlessly, their energy blasts tearing through the air with deadly precision. But Kong fought back with savage power, swatting the drones away as if they were nothing more than annoying insects. With every movement, he seemed to grow more determined, his connection to the earth fueling his rage. His roars echoed through the skies, a primal sound that sent a shiver down the spine of anyone who heard it. Inside the command center of the Empire's flagship, there was a growing sense of panic. The countdown to the weapon's full charge was nearing its final moments, but Kong was closing in faster than they had predicted. The commanders barked orders, demanding that every available weapon be trained on the giant ape. They believed that sheer firepower would be enough to stop him, but they were wrong. Kong ripped through the ship's outer hull, creating a massive hole in its side. His powerful hands gripped the ship's structure, and with a deafening roar, he pulled the vessel downward, destabilizing its trajectory. The ship lurched under the force of Kong's assault, and the Empire's soldiers inside scrambled to maintain control. Alarms blared as the ship's systems began to fail, their high-tech design no match for the raw physical power of Earth's defender. From below, the people of Earth watched in awe as Kong continued his assault, his massive frame now clearly visible as he clung to the Empire's ship like a beast of legend. The ground shook with every strike he made, the very planet seemingly cheering him on. For the first time since the Empire had arrived, there was a flicker of hope. Kong wasn't just a force of nature, he was their symbol of defiance, their living embodiment of resistance. The Empire's remaining ships began to reposition, preparing to fire their own weapons in a desperate attempt to dislodge Kong from the flagship. But Kong was relentless. As more drones and soldiers swarmed toward him, he ripped apart anything in his path, his fists smashing through metal and machinery as if they were made of paper. His movements were precise, almost surgical, as he dismantled the ship's defenses piece by piece. The Empire's flagship began to descend, losing altitude as its systems failed under the strain of Kong's attack. Inside, the commanders frantically tried to stabilize the vessel, but it was no use. Kong had done too much damage, and the ship was now caught in a freefall. The energy cannon, which had been moments away from firing, flickered as its power systems were disrupted. The weapon, which had been the Empire's ultimate trump card, now hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of destruction. Kong, sensing that the final blow was near, released his grip on the flagship and leaped toward the next ship in line. The Empire's forces, now fully aware of the threat he posed, concentrated their fire on him, unleashing everything they had. Missiles, lasers, and drones converged on his position, the sky alight with the energy of 1,000 weapons. But Kong pushed through it all, his roars growing louder, his attacks more ferocious. As he reached the second ship, Kong's fist connected with its hull, sending shockwaves through the structure. The ship's systems failed almost immediately, its defenses no match for the sheer power of the giant ape. One by one, the Empire's ships began to falter, their weapons silenced by Kong's unstoppable assault. Below, Earth's forces continued their coordinated attack, using every available resource to support Kong's efforts. Fighter jets and missile batteries targeted weak points in the Empire's remaining fleet, doing whatever they could to keep the enemy off balance. The ground forces, though outgunned and outmatched, fought with a level of determination that defied logic. They knew this was their last chance, and they were willing to give everything they had. Kong tore through the second ship with the same ferocity he had shown with the first. As the vessel crumbled beneath his blows, he moved on to the next, his path of destruction leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. The Empire's forces, once confident in their superiority, were now in full retreat. The tide of battle had shifted, and for the first time, the Galactic Empire found itself on the defensive. As the last of the Empire's ships began to fall, the energy cannon, now crippled and unable to fire, powered down. The weapon, which had once been the symbol of the Empire's unstoppable force, was now nothing more than a broken relic of their arrogance. Kong had done the impossible. He had stopped the superweapon, not with technology or strategy, but with the raw, elemental power of the Earth itself. With the battle won, Kong stood tall among the wreckage of the Empire's fleet, his massive form silhouetted against the sky. His breathing was heavy, his body covered in scars and burns from the battle, but he stood victorious. Earth had been saved, not by its military, not by its technology, but by the primal force that had been summoned in its darkest hour. And as the last of the Empire's ships retreated into the void, Earth's people cheered. They had faced the impossible and won, thanks to the King of the Jungle. The Galactic Empire's flagship, now a burning wreck, plummeted toward Earth, its systems beyond recovery. In their arrogance, the Empire had believed their weapon of mass destruction would be enough to cow an entire planet, but they hadn't accounted for Kong, an ancient force of nature that had risen in defense of his home. As the ship fell, fire and smoke trailing behind it, Kong stood tall, his massive chest heaving, watching as the remaining enemy ships scrambled to flee. But the fight wasn't over yet. From the depths of the Empire's remaining forces, a final assault began. The ships that had managed to stay operational aimed their weaponry toward Kong. They had nothing left to lose. Missiles streaked through the air, drones buzzed with high-frequency blasters, and energy cannons fired in a desperate attempt to destroy him. Kong roared in defiance, his massive fists smashing through the projectiles. The world below watched, breathless, as the battle reached its final, critical moments. Kong didn't retreat. His eyes locked onto the last ship in the sky, the one that still held some operational capability. His muscles tensed as he prepared to launch himself at it, determined to end this battle once and for all. But something stopped him. The superweapon, the massive energy cannon that had been crippled during the battle, flickered to life again. Its systems, though severely damaged, were still capable of one last, desperate blast. The weapon's core began to glow ominously, charging once more with lethal energy. If it fired, the devastation would be beyond anything Earth had ever faced. Even Kong, as powerful as he was, might not survive such a blast. The Empire's commanders, desperate to salvage their mission, diverted all remaining power to the cannon. They knew this was their last chance. If they could take out Kong and one of Earth's major cities in a single strike, they could still claim some form of victory. The energy in the core surged, and the weapon aimed toward Earth's surface, directly at Kong. Kong, sensing the growing danger, let out a primal roar. He sprinted toward the towering weapon with terrifying speed, his massive legs pounding the ground beneath him. The world watched as he approached, the energy around the superweapon crackling in the air, growing brighter and brighter by the second. It was now or never. The weapon fired. A beam of pure energy shot toward the planet's surface, a glowing streak of destruction that would have wiped out anything in its path. But Kong was ready. With a monumental leap, he hurled himself directly into the path of the blast. The energy hit him with the force of 1,000 suns, but Kong didn't falter. His massive hands gripped the core of the weapon, holding back the full force of its energy as it poured down on him. The ground beneath him cracked and split from the sheer impact, but Kong stood firm, his body absorbing the energy as if it were feeding his very essence. His connection to Earth seemed to amplify his strength, the elemental forces of the planet flowing through him as he fought back against the weapon. The beam, once unstoppable, now faltered, its energy weakening as Kong drained its power. With a final, earth-shattering roar, Kong grabbed the energy cannon with both hands and ripped it apart. The core exploded in a blinding flash of light, the shockwave rippling through the sky. The weapon, which had once been the pride of the Galactic Empire, was reduced to nothing more than a smoldering heap of wreckage. The Empire's last hope had been destroyed. The remaining Empire's ships, realizing their defeat was absolute, began to retreat. They powered up their engines and fled the planet's atmosphere, abandoning their failed mission. Earth had won, not through technological superiority, but through the raw, untamed force of nature embodied in King Kong. As the skies cleared, the people of Earth erupted in celebration. Their world had been on the brink of annihilation, but they had survived. More than that, they had triumphed. Kong stood tall in the aftermath, his massive form silhouetted against the setting sun, the ground beneath him still smoldering from the battle. His victory wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. Earth had defied an intergalactic empire, and won, through the power of one of its oldest and most primal defenders. But Kong's work wasn't finished. With the Empire's ships in retreat, and their weapon destroyed, Kong took one last look at the world he had fought so fiercely to protect. His eyes scanned the horizon, where the remnants of the battle still lingered. Slowly he began to move, his massive form lumbering back toward the jungle from which he had emerged. The world watched him go, knowing that he was returning to the shadows of myth, waiting once more until he was needed. There were no words spoken, no grand gestures of gratitude. There didn't need to be. Kong had done what he was summoned to do. He had protected the planet, not for recognition, but because it was his purpose. As he disappeared into the thick jungle, the world knew that, should the need ever arise again, Kong would return. Humanity, battered but victorious, looked to the future with renewed determination. They had faced the overwhelming might of the Galactic Empire and survived. Not through advanced technology or brilliant military strategy, but through the sheer, unbreakable will to live. They had summoned a legend, and that legend had reminded the galaxy of one undeniable truth: Earth was not a planet to be conquered easily. And in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed the battle, one fact became crystal clear: as long as King Kong stood, Earth would never fall. The Galactic Empire had deployed its greatest weapon, but Earth had responded with something far more powerful, an ancient force of nature that no technology could ever hope to defeat.